Summer is in full swing over at Middleman Records with new releases from Worn Through, Process Sleep, and Coma of Iris. But that's not all. For the first time ever on cassette, you can pick up Akameli's For Now and Ever discography, as well as the Lacrima Cartography release, Body of Wasps LP, It Ends and So It Begins Again, and Keiki Obati's We Kill Ourselves with Compassion. And if that wasn't enough, you can also pick up a second press of last year's Tragedy of Catharsis by Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. So head over to middlemanrecords.bandcamp.com where you can find all that and more. Hello, and welcome to Everything Remade, a podcast that I hope is about growth as much as it is about music. I'm Edie Quinn, and we have a great show lined up for you today. Before we get started, though, I'd like to remind you about our Patreon page at patreon.com/humanmachine, where you can go to sign up and support the show and get music sneak peeks, read zines, and so much more. That's patreon.com/humanmachine. And now, I'd like to play something for you. You're hearing I Seem to Be an Adjective by Emma Goldman, featuring my pal Victoria on vocals. The song comes off their new album, All You Are Is We, which you can find on Bandcamp now.
Club, and the rest of the drama club was going to New York for a class trip, and the drama teacher thought it would be cool to include the people who couldn't afford to go to New York to participate in some way. And so it was me and another girl, and we put together a fundraiser concert at our high school. And I'd never done anything like that. Previously, I was just enjoying music. And we put together the show, and this was during the era of MySpace. And so I sent a message to a local band, a few local bands from Vancouver. And one of the bands was they were called Sunday Morning Paper, and they had a really beautiful sound. It was the vocals sounded kind of like Conor Oberst from Bright Eyes. And they had a cello, and I messaged them and I asked them if they wanted to play, and they were hey, that sounds really cool. We're not an active band anymore, but some of us are in another band called Hats Off Gentlemen. And we do more screamo rather than emo. And so I asked them to play that show, and I was just I never really, I guess I'd heard a bit of screamo like I'd heard Alexis on Fire and stuff, um, like on the TV, because in Canada there's like CanCon, you have to play like a certain amount of like Canadian content, and so Alexis on Fire really got pushed to the teens in the mid 2000s on like Much Music, which was awesome because I don't feel like that would have happened otherwise had it not been for CanCon regulations. Um, uh, yeah, but I really liked Hats Off Gentlemen, and I also asked this band. I mean, this was like the like scene, like that era was very popular, and there was this kind of like sassy, like they're kind of riffing off of like the Red Light Sting and like Blood Brothers, but there's this local band in Vancouver that was pretty popular called Fake Shark Real Zombie, and I asked them also to play the fundraiser show, and they said yes, and I freaked out, because they were like one of my favorite bands, and then they were like, how much do we get paid? And I was like, nothing.
Right.
So yeah, so they didn't play, but Hats Off Gentlemen did, and they were really cool, and they were from like the west side of Vancouver, and I feel like parts of the city are, I don't know, at least as like a teenager, felt like really siloed. Like I grew up on the east side of Vancouver, and like the two sides, they shall not pass for the most part.
Yeah.
And so it was like it got like the east side people that were into emo and screamo hanging out with the west side teens that were also into that. And then I just started going to a lot of the Hats Off Gentlemen shows. And I think that's kind of like what got me into screamo. And they played at this house show venue in Vancouver that's been around for like over 20 years called the Alf House. And they opened for Graf Orlock. And I think that was like one of my first like DIY shows that I went to. And I was like, holy shit, like, like this is intense. And I don't think I really realized like I could do that until I saw like a totally unrelated band when I was 18 or maybe 19. I saw Shannon and the Clams come to Vancouver, and seeing Shannon up there, they're like a garage band, but she was just like this like big woman. And I was like, oh, like, I don't know, like in like the mid 2000s, it was like everyone in the emo scene that was like, worth paying attention to, everyone was like pretty skinny. And so it was just like, it never even crossed my mind that like a plus size woman could like take up space in that scene.
Yeah.
As like kind of stupid as that sounds, I never thought it was something that it just never crossed my mind, even though I had been like singing, like, in choir and stuff. But yeah, I saw Shannon and the Clams, and I was like, oh shit, like maybe I could do that. And then like a few months later, Felix, who plays in Emma Goldman with me, he plays guitar. We started our first band, Dad Thighs.
Yeah, I think when you said Hats Off Gentlemen, and I was like, is that one of the bands that Felix had mentioned when he was
Yeah,
on? I think it
yeah,
was. Yeah. So
yeah.
that's what I was going to ask. Like, did you know Felix already? Or, when you were talking about like the East Siders and the West Siders, you know, being at the same shows for the first time ish kind of situation, I was like, this reads like one of those old Travolta musicals or something, like where
Yeah.
everybody's at the sock hop and just finally they all realize they have more in common than they do different, or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but yeah, it is. It is. It is really like it does make sense what you're saying though, because like when you're talking about MySpace specifically and like just the aesthetic back then, like there was like it was literally just like people trying to stuff themselves into like the smallest clothing possible and stuff. And if you
Yeah.
don't fuck with that, like, it's just like I could see you just being like, yeah, this isn't for me, you know?
Yeah.
Like just um and I don't yeah, I don't remember people being like shitty about anything specifically otherwise than that, but I could definitely see how I would be like, yeah, no. Like and that's too bad. Like I don't know. Like I'm th- I'm literally thinking right now about how like, you know, some of like my friends who were like very thin and stuff, and they're trying to wear like youth small shirts and stuff, and you're like, you look pretty ridiculous, you know. But like, I don't know, that was the thing, you know, at the time. And I don't know, it's weird. But yeah, dad dies. I remember I remember y'all being really, really good. And I
Oh,
don't know if I
thanks.
talked to Felix about this specifically when we were chatting, but I, I, I see, you know, there was a time there when there was a lot of bands with the word dad in it. And
Hmm.
one of them specifically, like, really rubbed me the wrong way. And and like, it's like, this is all like hindsight, and none of this, like, I hope this impression doesn't like mean, like, I know I was being like uh what's the word I'm looking for, like, I know I was being like superficial, right? But I was like, oh, I wish this was not their name because there's like so good, you know. But like I said, I was by, like, I don't know. This one band that had dad in their name, people are going to either know what I'm talking about or they're not, right? But
Hmm.
one of the members of this band used to write like really shitty, like super horny, like misogynist, like Tumblr fiction, right? And like there was a line in this dude's fucking thing where he literally goes, "It was the fourth or fifth hardest my cock had ever been." And like it's like
That's awesome.
when anybody mentions this band, like I just throw that line in the comments, and people must be like, I have no idea what she's talking about, right? But like, if you know, that's the funniest fucking thing you read all day, you know?
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
sick.
I mean, it's, yeah. I mean, and it's like, I don't know. When I say that like that, and and you just hear that, you're like, that could be really fucking funny to read, like in a, but it was just this, it was such a, like, you like Charles Bukowski, we get it. You know what I mean? And
Oh
that it
yeah,
was just like,
that's a bit of an eye roll for
yeah,
sure.
when you're reading this, you're like it, you're embarrassed for this person. You know what I mean? Like, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a good writer either. Don't get me wrong. But like, yeah, it's just. So I remembered like when I heard you all, I was like, this is so fucking good. But like, I just that little pettiness of me, and I was like, I wish they weren't called this. Like, I would be like trying to put that out or something, you know, like, but I can't, I just can't right now. I can't. I need, you know, I needed time and space to heal from what I
Yeah,
read. And
honestly, fair.
now I can joke about it, but like I needed that space, you know? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah, that is okay because I was like, that was like a pretty normal reaction that we got. I think we just like came up with the name concurrently with a lot of other bands that were doing it at the same time.
oh yeah,
Um, just kind of the roll of the dice. But it was not. I feel like people misconstrued it, and we got roped in with a lot of those bands, and I feel like we didn't really sound like a lot of them,
no,
which was
no, for sure.
unfortunate. Um, but yeah, the name of the band was. I thought it was like a really funny poke at like just like a funny way to look at how a lot of musicians like male musicians typically like objectify women's bodies, and
Mm-hmm.
how funny it would be to reverse it.
Yeah. Yeah, sort of like don't you feel ridiculous like thinking about like this posed that way?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. Like, and like I said, it was just that thing at the time, but also, you know, you saying like that there was, it's, it's really weird how there just seems to be like things that happen like in like the zeitgeist or whatever, you know, like in certain like, and I don't even know like sometimes where if you can say like, oh, like this is a domino effect where somebody saw something and it triggered something in their brain, or if these things just happen randomly and concurrently at the same time, you know. But it was like sports references were such a thing,
Hmm.
like around it was around that same time. It was like either you
Yeah.
had dad in your name or you had sports and some kind of sports, you know. And
Yeah.
yeah, it started like a couple of years ago. Like I saw a band that also like they were a newer band, and like way newer than us. Like we're going on like 15 years now, but like they were a newer band and they had the word coma in their name, and I was like, oh no, like no, like that's not. I don't want like one band, you know, two bands, like it's whatever, but like let's not have a whole thing happening right now, please. But you know, like um but yeah, it's just sometimes like it just does happen, like um you know, of frail hands, frail body,
Yeah. I
then
still get them confused. It's terrible.
yeah. And then
Terrible on
there's
my part.
right, it's like but they were like practically the same time too. It was like
Yeah.
one of those things, you know. And
Yeah.
then there's false body, and there's
Yeah.
like there are kind of a lot of like body was a I think a hot one for a minute too, you know, like was one of those things where you were just turning around and you're like, what's happening? Do these bands know about each other, or this is just this thing right now, which makes sense because like you know, the dialogue around people's bodies is it you know is like it's a part of the zeitgeist right now, you know, and
Yeah.
it's sort of how like it's what we're talking about in the first place. Like when you name Dad Dies, you know, this is like there's like especially right now, like bodily autonomy is like
Yeah.
it's a huge thing, you know, like in so many uh, different ways that you can look at it, you know, like whether it's you know cis women's bodies, you know, which is like that's always been a thing, you know, that like people are seek to control and whatever, and then it's like obviously like trans people's bodies right now is like, and
Hmm.
not that like not that we've ever gotten like a reprieve on that exactly, you know what I mean? But like it's a
Yeah.
it's a big thing that's boiling to a head right now as well. So it does make sense, you know, but yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know.
Totally. I feel like just like it's just like a great example, like people naming their bands similar things, or like, talking about similar things. It's a great example of like we are like we're all kind of made up of like our surroundings, and
Hmm.
like the things that we take in, and um like individualism is a fucking lie.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
collectivism is where it's at.
I guess there's there's a lot of places where we could go there. But I usually, I don't get the opportunity a lot to chat with folks about like lyrics
Right.
specifically. And um I'll just like, okay, so like more or less we're here to chat about your new album. All You Are Is We just came out April 28th. It's
Yeah.
fucking incredible. Like
Yeah.
um I I already, like, last week I was chatting with my friend Donovan from the band Skimp, and I was
Mhm.
like, your album is my favorite album of the year. And that, I think that still kind of goes. But like, as far as like a screamo album goes, I don't know if I'm going to hear a better album than your album this year. I don't know. It's
Well,
early, right?
it's only May. You never know.
But here's the thing. Like, here's the thing about your album is, and I already knew a lot of this was coming because, Felix and I, we chatted about it. And he was talking about, like, you know, how there's a lot of electronic stuff, there's a lot of different things happening. And then so I
Mm.
expected this. Did I think it was going to work as well as it did? Maybe not. It's such a hard thing to pull off, and y'all pulled it off like effortlessly. Well, not
Oh,
effortlessly,
yeah.
because obviously a lot of effort went into it. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but here's the other thing is like, okay, I was listening to it, and I was like, there's a lot of this. Like, I feel like it has more in common with like the first couple Mars Volta albums than like a screamo album, air quotes, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But but
Sick.
when I'm as soon as I'm saying that to myself, then here comes like, this could have been an Orchid riff, kinda. And so it's like, how did that happen, right? So there's just so much going on, like, musically, that, like, I feel like there's nothing wrong with a band that just comes out and because like my band does this all the time. This is our whole shtick. There's nothing wrong with a band that just comes out and it's just like, this is a screamo album, start to finish. Like, here, there's some quiet parts and there's some heavy parts and there's some whatever, but what you're getting is what you're getting. And I don't think there's anything like, some of my favorite albums are just that, right? But like,
Yeah. Agreed. 100%.
y'all have so much going on there. It's like, it feels really like diverse in application of all these like different ideas and stuff. And that's like not even where, like, the music isn't even where that sort of like novel approach like ends. Like, the lyrics were, they were interesting, and like um they were like, at times they're not like grating, that's not the word, but like at times they're like, they require more, I feel like, of the listener than like other albums that are similar. Like, and I
I
don't,
get what you mean.
what?
I think I get
Yeah,
what you're
and
getting at.
I don't know if that sounds like that's like a critique in like a negative way, because it's not. I think it's like super refreshing in
Oh,
in in this, like, this isn't just, I don't know. Like, I didn't know. I'm like, where where is this coming from? Like, what, I'm not sure like what point of view I'm supposed to be having, or like, I'm like, okay, you could just look at this like it's poetry and it's applied to music. And
hmm.
that's like, you could look at any number of song lyrics that same way and it's still not this, right? So like if there was a starting point for you when you
Mm-hmm.
approached like a specific song,
Mm.
where where are you starting, and is it different with every song just based on like the vibe of the song, or is it, do you start in a different place based on the theme of the lyrical content, or like just like walk me through like.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Well, to clarify, Felix and I share writing credits.
Okay.
Um, and he's like the stronger writer than I am in the band. He like, yeah, I don't know. That's like his thing. He like went to school for it and stuff, and he's like hella into poetry and has like published poetry, and I'm just trying to match his pace,
Okay.
basically. um, but I think when I'm like approaching lyric writing, a lot of the time, like it's the least fruitful when I sit down and I'm like, I'm going to write lyrics today. And it's more fruitful generally if I just try to do like a little bit every day, just like random things that pop into my head, and then like I can come back to it. It's like a really long process, but like I come back to it and I have all these like disparate parts, and then try to weave like a through line through it, and then edit as I go,
Okay.
uh, and then like take a step back and try it again.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I think in terms of like the style, like I do think it's like more poetry than like songwriting in terms of the lyrics, and I think what you might be looking at there is that it feels like it is but it isn't, is a lot of like songwriting lyrics are done in what's called like a lyric poem, and so it has like a subject, and it usually comes from the perspective of the writer, not always but like often, and we tried to like stray away from that. I don't know, with like everything that we did with this album, we were like, how can we push the envelope and like do something different? And I think the lyric writing was another part of that. And I know we were like pretty inspired by like the language poet scene from the province that we're from. There's um, this group of people called the Kootenai School of Writing, and they did, I don't know if they're still doing it, but a lot of them did like, I don't know, like language poetry where you're thinking about like what the words sound like rather than like your perspective on
Oh, okay.
something, and like how they sound, like how the words interact with each other. Um, Yeah,
Yeah, I can.
while still put, like having some sort of like message, or some sort of theme that runs through it.
Yeah.
So some of the songs may seem incoherent. There's like, especially like this is the land of lost content. Like the second half of it, there are no nouns. It's like all adjectives, I think,
Okay.
or
So
verbs.
I read that as lost content
Yeah, I mean,
because
it could be both. That
yeah,
that's
because like y'all have some, y'all like I was gonna mention some of the titles like at some point, and like because some of them are kind of like taking a jab at like contemporary, of the now, like topics and stuff, like it rubs
Mhm,
the boycott ketchup on its brand new slacks, like
mhm,
um uh we're corporatizing polyamory. um
mhm,
Excuse me. So that's why I was like, oh, like this is the land of last content. Like I was like looking for a critique of art as like um how like how people I don't know. I was like looking at the words for some kind of critique of like what like how modern art has like not necessarily like not putting ideas into anyone's head of what like that would be, but
Mhm.
like the way that certain forms of things have been labeled as content now instead
Yeah.
of like what they like um excuse me, like how like someone who has an art account on Instagram will be like, I need to make content, like
Mhm.
no, you don't need to make content. You need to like draw, you need to paint your paintings, or whatever. Like how looking at things as content is problematic to like, not I'm not trying to put any of these words into your mouth. I was
Hey, it's your reading, you
right.
know.
No, I was just saying like I was looking for a critique of the like the idea of the word content, is what I was trying to say.
Right.
And
Yeah, yeah.
so all of everything that I've just said is like just sort of like those are critiques that are already existing.
Mhm.
Right. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I definitely see what you're saying about the words and the way they sound. There was a song, and I wish I could look it up. I don't think I can like look it up while we're chatting, but there was a song where there were three words in a row that were all starting with C, and they kept repeating in the song, and I was like, yeah, that's a really interesting phrasing. Like I don't know if that like yeah, you're like, yeah, I don't know. There's so many words like to
Yeah.
y'all songs. That's the other thing, right? Like nobody writes
It's probably
like
intentional.
yeah, it's like um there's that's like something that I'm always when I'm like doing our lyric sheets and stuff and I'm typing out like our lyrics, I'm like Jillian Carter, like their lyrics are great, right? And like I've
Mhm.
done like collaborative projects with Logan before where Logan did vocals on a song, and like I got Logan's lyrics and it's like 7 or 8 lines and I'm like, these are fucking great. And then I look at my shit and it's like spilling off the page and I'm like, what am I doing? This is screamo. Like I'm supposed to write 4 things and they're just supposed to repeat themselves, a bunch of times. Like what's
I
happening?
mean, do whatever you want, you
Right,
know? Like,
right.
I mean, Felix and I also have that problem of just like we've, for as long as we've been making music together, there's always like too much, or we feel like it's too much. And
Yeah.
then, but I think too much is a good thing.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that there's like anything wrong with like either approach. I'm saying like from my point of view, especially when I'm getting to a point where I'm trying to close out like some lyrics and I'm having like a difficult time, I'm like, damn, I wish I was just one of those people,
Hmm.
that could just like write like 10, 12 lines and be like, yeah, that's it. We're good,
Okay,
you know?
I've never really met anybody like that. As far as I know, I feel like people spend a lot of time with it, they just
Oh
don't.
no, like no, I'm not saying that like people who only write 8 lines don't spend a lot of time with it either. Like it's just like my idea of like efficiency or whatever, that like damn, like I wish I could manage that as opposed
Yeah.
to because I don't know. There's even people that like are like I don't understand what this song is about and I'm like, "Oh my god." Like like what else did I have to say? It's there's so much I already said. I can't do anymore. But I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
I don't know. And so when I get the chance to chat with people about lyrics and stuff, I feel like, you know, I'm, and I'm always doing this. Like, this isn't, I've said this before. I don't think this is a secret. Like, when I get on here to chat with people and I start chatting with people about things, like, I, I'm not asking these questions because, like, I think they're smart questions. I'm like, I need help. I need you to, like, you know, um, like, where are you coming from when you're writing this awesome stuff that I really like, you know?
Um, just
And
taking inspo from like a lot of other kinds of art, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Do, you said you will do a little bit at a time, and you'll just sort of like let you know, like you. I don't know if this was exactly what you're applying, but it's the impression I got that you are better just like letting it more or less come to you, and then trying to flesh it out like once you have something to go on. Um,
Yeah, I feel like I started saying that, but that is something I'm trying to work on is to have like a writing routine
uh huh.
actually.
Uh huh.
Because waiting for like inspiration to hit is fool's errand for sure.
Yeah, I definitely found that to be the case with like writing the music for sure. Like,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, totally.
I spent like
It's
several
it's just
years.
practice.
Yeah, I spent several years like not really writing very many songs because I had that idea that like the sun was just gonna kiss me with golden light, and I was gonna write the perfect riff or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
but
I think what I meant more so is like I write without the intention of it being like perfect off the
mhm,
get-go and just kind of like just writing for the sake of writing with like no expectations and just like not expecting to like finish anything to like in a day otherwise I just can't do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have like any kind of like rituals that you do to sort of get yourself in the mind space to be creative in that way, or is it just like, oh, it's time to go?
mm, I don't know, like I feel like I don't I feel like I'm not the best person to ask for this, like I um because it's a struggle and I'm so bad at like routines.
Hmm.
Like uh yeah.
Yeah, no, it's
I I
I
don't
mean,
know.
I'm
I
only
just try to
asking.
put everything away and just like focus, like
Yeah.
put the phone away. I think it really helps to like write in a notebook rather than like on your phone or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Just like keeping the distractions away. I find that helps a lot. I also find just like watching like good movies or like reading good books or whatever, like going for walks and stuff. Like that shit, it sounds corny, but like it really helps.
Hmm. And I wasn't asking like like a lot of times, like, I don't know, I heard this thing about like, oh, to boost creativity, like paint a wall red. And like this was like
What?
this artist got told that, right? And so he did it, and someone was like, so did it work? And he was like, I have to say it worked, right? Like, and so this isn't like this wasn't me like, yeah, like, do you have like a salve for like creativity, like something that, like, this was just like, is there something that you do? And if there isn't, then there isn't, but like, I absolutely agree with like, and I need to like do this more often, but I like writing something like on paper. And the problem with me with that is that I have like my hands are really bad, like they cramp and stuff. And so
Right.
the like the voice memo, has been like a lifesaver in that regard.
Oh,
But
hell
like
yeah.
there is,
Accessible writing. Let's go.
yeah, but there's something that like there's something too, like, you know you're seeing like there's something to when you're writing it down, and you're like you're making marks on paper, which is
Mm-hmm.
like, in essence, like an art form that only, like, that's the way you write. That's only you writing those words, as opposed to, like, I mean, as whatever as this will sound, but like when you're just like looking at the type on your phone, it's not it. I don't know. It might not connect you to the words that you're writing the same way, and so, like,
Yeah.
I, I personally, like, when I'm writing like lyrics, like one line by one line, just the tactile, like, sort of like the way you can just cross something out that you
Mm-hmm.
don't like it, and you cross it out, but it's like still there. And there's so much, I don't know, there's just like, I'm getting like really, in my own head about this right now, but like, do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, where you're just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
raw,
When
the,
I when
the,
I was when I was in school, I had an instructor that was like, she was just like so intent on us taking notes with like pen and paper rather than typing. And she was like, studies show that like you retain the information better if you are like physically writing it down rather than typing it or some alternative or whatever.
mhm,
And I think like there's definitely some truth to that. And it just like it gets your brain juices flowing like in a type of way,
mhm, mhm,
um but I mean I also think about like I don't know uh like like the Iliad and the Odyssey, like apparently Homer, if Homer was one person, like that those were all like oral traditions, like they were passed on, they weren't written down. And like I don't know, there's like lots of like indigenous nations and communities out there that like didn't have writing and like passed everything down orally. And it's like I feel like yeah, writing is like really cool and important and like definitely better than typing. But like saying things out loud is also like a probably just as good.
yeah, yeah. I mean, well, that's that the difference being like when you're talking to your phone or you're hearing something from another person.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that would
Or
be
like
the.
Milton, he wrote Paradise Lost. He apparently, this is the story, he was completely blind when he wrote it. And he like had to dictate it to um, like an assistant or something.
Hmm.
And like that's like the greatest, in my opinion, like the greatest poem written in the English language.
I imagine there's all kinds of ideas around how that could have happened as well. Like, whether this person was taking dictation exactly as it was, or if they were just like, like there's always something like that, right? Like there's always,
That's so true.
yeah,
Yeah, the unsung ghostwriter. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's, I don't know. It's like just everything about like making music, making art, like being creative is fascinating to me. You know, like just um like how do we like how do we get there, you know, from like where we're
Yeah.
just like, you know, like yeah, music is cool, so the next thing you're writing like these, you know, like wild lyrics that like, you know, um people are like trying to rack their brains over, and you know, like you end up inspiring like other people that need it like yourself, you know, did at one time. You know, it's
Yeah.
I don't know, it's like really we can we can all just sort of plug in the microphone and go and hit record, and we can all like do that, um those like functions,
Hmm.
and like it's like if you evaluate them for the physical act of what they are, like I feel like it demystifies it in a sense, but like
Yeah.
it's so wild, like we're just like there's just like these vibrations from like these strings that are going through these electrical
Literally.
machines that we don't understand, you know, like guitar players, like
Yeah.
we don't understand what's happening inside there, you know, like
Yeah.
one out of every 100 of us does, you know, but like
Hmm.
yeah, it's, I don't know, it's wild, but
Yeah, the world is beautiful and mysterious.
yeah, and so I feel like yeah, sometimes I am like I am just like yeah, like I mean, I'll say one thing that happens with me is like I actually write a lot of in my shower. So that's one weird
Yeah.
thing for me.
Yes.
Um it's like
Hey, I come up with quite a few things in the shower. It's
yeah,
the perfect place to do it. I don't know what it is about it.
it's just like you're, I don't know. It's like you were saying, like when you specifically you put your phone aside so you can't have that distraction, and like you're by yourself, you know, typically in the shower, you know, and
Hmm.
like there's like it's not, there's nothing else that's going to be like, unless there's some kind of emergency, like, you know, like there's nothing else that's like has to happen between
Yeah,
when you go in and when you're out, you know, that like can take precedence over just like your mind wandering and
totally.
you know, and everything like that. So I don't, yeah, I don't know. I've heard
Yeah.
I've heard about people like having like, you know, borderline like transcendental experiences in like bathhouses and stuff, and I don't know if that's like similar, you know. I'm like
Okay.
yeah, I'm like I don't, you know, if you were by yourself and as you're in this like, you know, this like hot shower in this bathhouse, and you know whatever, in this like beautiful scenic area or whatever, like I mean I could see myself being like yeah, like I'm gonna have some profound thoughts, you know, but like that'll never happen to me, you know. The shower's the best still, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I feel like it's probably just like you're saying, it's just like a reprieve from like the dopamine we're constantly like feeding ourselves um, from the world around us. We it's so hard to like step away from it, but it's like so essential for like being an artist.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. um so as far as like, you know, the as far as the band goes, y'all have been like at it a while. We've had like, you know, a bunch of excuse me, like a couple of splits and an EP, and
Hmm.
you've been building like to this moment, you know,
For a while,
as
yeah.
you know, um when it came time to where everyone decided, like, this time we're going to do a full length album. Obviously, like, you already mentioned that you were like, yeah, we're going to try to like push this, like, we're going to push ourselves even further than like
Mm.
what we've tried to do in the past. And like, there's a lot of this that has to do with like, obviously, like the like pressing times and stuff of the record too. So like the record's been
Hmm.
done more or less for a while. um like,
Yeah.
what now that like, from the time when you're done with the record until the record is out, like, there's sort of like, we're going to release a single here, we're going to release a single there, but like, what what's how has it felt to you after all that work, and like, you're done with the record? Obviously you're going to be like, I can't wait until this is just out and everybody can hear it. But
Yeah.
like, from when you're done until when people can hear it and it's out, like now, what is where are you, and like your relationship to the band, like, where are you at creatively now that you've sort of been like, oh, this weight is off my shoulders, because we've accomplished the thing, but like,
Yeah.
it's not all the way there yet. Like, what's the interim period like?
Right. I guess we're just, well, yeah, since we finished like writing and mixing and everything, we pretty much just started writing. I mean, we had already started writing for like the next thing. So we've just been doing that. Um, like maybe an album. I don't know. We haven't really decided yet what it's going to look like. I want to make another album. Um, and I think that's kind of where we're heading. Um, just been focusing on like playing shows as well locally, and like regionally. That takes up quite a bit of time. Like the songs are like they're hard to play,
Yeah.
and so we kind of have to like keep up
Mm-hmm.
and like practice regularly, and like that takes a lot of time. Um, and we're like we were not. It took us like 5 years to put this album out. Like some of those songs we started like writing before like even the pandemic hit. Um, and so I think we're writing a bit at a bit faster of a pace now, but we're still taking our time with everything, um, and just yeah, just focusing on the next thing, I guess,
And
and trying to have fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
are you more or less taking the same approach, like lyrically and musically, as you did writing the other stuff? Is there sort of just like a, this is how we write songs, or are you aiming it differently than?
That's a good question. I don't know yet. I have not finalized any lyrics for this upcoming thing, um, and neither has Felix. I think I'm trying to take a bigger share of the writing credits for the next one, but we'll see how it pans out. We
Okay.
have like loose ideas of like a general theme and like a general vibe of what we're doing. But I don't know if it's like a different approach. Yeah.
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 Do you always come with like words first, or when you're hearing the songs, like, in, whatever shape they're being written, like, are you starting to form the like the phrasing and stuff from there, like the vocal like patterns and
Yeah.
stuff as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah. I usually do the top note before figuring out what lyrics work with it, but
Okay.
also it's like that's not like a concrete like this is how we do it every time, but
Right.
that's just kind of how it's shaken out.
How did you parse that? You top note?
Or top line? I don't know. That's
Okay.
what um Pavel, the drummer in Emma Goldman, that's what he calls it. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. I
Like
guess it's
the
like
pattern?
the meter. Yeah, the
Oh,
like the
okay.
vocal pattern.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Um Usually we try to come up with that, like it's usually like the music comes first and then the top line for the vocals, and then we see what we have for like written stuff and see like what works, and then like there's the fine tuning of like how it all fits together, and then
Hmm.
we can like change things, and um yeah.
There's a lot of interplay with the vocals on the record that I find really interesting. And is that like, does some of that happen from like, one person being like, I'm going to do something like this, and then the other person being a reaction to that? Or is that more or less planned beforehand?
Some of it is like, oh, like it makes sense for the lyrics. Like it's two people or like two voices in a conversation or
Oh,
like
okay.
in a dialogue. And then some of it is just like pragmatic. Like I can't physically do this
Ah,
alone.
right, right.
um, it really just depends on the song,
Yeah.
but yeah.
And when you're talking about like, excuse me, when you're talking about like the the structure of the top line or whatever, like um changing and like you finding out like how the words fit and stuff like that, do you are there times when you will force the words to fit because they're like, you're like, no, I'm like, this is my baby, I'm not like gonna kill my darling this time? Or in the inverse, is there times when you love this top line so much, but the words are perfect, so you just gotta let that go
Hmm.
and let the words inform the verse, the way the verse breaks down? Like, do those instances, like, has there been instances where those things happen to where you're like, eventually you're like, in the long run this was the best choice? Or
Yeah, I mean, again, it really depends on the song. Like sometimes it's like, no, I have to use this particular word,
right.
and we like, I don't know, we do. I mean, it's a band, right? Like we do everything by consensus, and so, if I'm like, oh, I'm like super married to this phrase, like, can we figure it out somehow? Then we'll figure it out. But if everyone's like, I don't know, like then that like the, let's try something else.
Hmm.
um, then we try something else.
Yeah. Is that like, is that kind of like a that kind of instance where like, because like I was getting the impression that the music was more or less like solidified to where when the vocals came in,
Well,
like,
that might be why it takes us so long to write songs.
right. Because like
Because
things keep changing at every like junction.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I think that's
yeah,
good though, right? In the long run.
yeah. I mean, in the end, like the result is something that we're all like really proud of, so I don't mind taking our time with it.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked about like where I've done something on accident in some part of the recording stage, like in some stage of the recording, and I've had to come up with something later that like wasn't part of the original idea, and me like being like, I couldn't have, I like, number one, I didn't plan that. Number two, I couldn't have planned that if I tried. And so like that's like my own version of like having someone else come and edit my own ideas later, but it was just like me editing myself because I made a boo boo or what, like I just like I goofed, and
Yeah.
I don't know. So like, yeah, I can see how like, yeah, you're every time you're taking this to the next level, there's a possibility that like some more ideas that are off the cuff, or just like outside the box are gonna
Hmm.
more likely to happen. And yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, like nothing's done until it's like recorded and mixed and mastered.
Yeah.
It's always open for edits.
And was there a part when you're recording this album where you're still more or less like fine tuning things, or by that point you're like,
Oh, yeah, we were like figuring out the lyrics for some of the songs, like finalizing them like the night before recording, sort of thing.
oh my goodness. And what's that
Yeah.
session look like? Just like you and Felix on the floor with like the notepad and just passing the pen back and forth, or
Well, yeah, it was just for like a couple songs, and Felix had written stuff for them already, and it was more so I had figured out the top line too, and it was us just like figuring out how it's gonna work together, and like figuring out if we needed to like redo the top line at all. And it was the four of us sitting together in my living room, hashing it out, figuring out what works the best in service of the song. Everything is in service of the song.
yeah, yeah. And was this kind of like, what was this a like lyrically? Is this kind of like an and moment, like, or like where it's you're passing the baton back and forth, or like is it just like someone firing off some ideas and then them getting edited and whatever by consensus, or
Um,
maybe a little bit of all that?
yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I I watched a documentary, like I mean, not a proper documentary, just like a YouTube thing, right? But like it was about that band, the Sundays, and like they used the guitar player and the vocalist were like an item, at least at the time when the band was. I think they still are actually, at least when that documentary came out, but. They used to write all their songs by one person would write one line, and then they would literally, the next person would have to write the next line. And I thought that was like
Yeah.
really interesting, and it makes some of the lyrics like make more sense that they don't make more sense, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? but
Yeah.
um but like
That that's like that game you play in elementary school where you like fold a piece of paper accordion style, and like one person draws the head and like one person draws the torso, and then you have this like crazy monster that like not one person could ever come up with. I
oh
really I like that. Did you ever
yeah,
play that game?
no, that's the first. There's so many games that are like that, but that's the first I've heard about like drawing a monster. Yeah, that
Mm.
sounds awesome. um
Yeah, you should try it next time
yeah,
you're hanging out with some friends. It's pretty fun.
my my youngest son brought home a comic that everybody had to draw one panel of the comic, and somebody started it, and then by the time it got to the end of this comic, it was just like, what the hell happened, and it was awesome, it was really cool. But
Yeah, that's sick.
yeah, yeah, it just like the improvisational like part of that is really awesome. I don't know. Like I don't get to work with like a ton of different people all the time. Like usually I'm like, okay, I'll more or less like write a thing and then somebody will do the vocals or something, but
Mhm.
but like when I do a bigger thing where there's a lot of moving parts and stuff, it is it is really interesting to get all those like and then moments that happen, and
Mhm.
it's it's really cool to see them laid out, all across like the project, as it were, and I think that y'all's album is a really good example of how a lot of seemingly unconnected ideas can connect and gel in a way that like seems highly unlikely, but like the end result was incredible.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, thank you.
Um,
Yeah, just trying to do as much as we possibly can. And uh, I don't know. I think like um, yeah, the like communal aspect of the band, like the collaboration is like really pivotal for songwriting as a whole. So it's cool that that comes across.
yeah, for sure. Um, so you did mention that you're more or less already on to the next thing, um, like as far as like writing songs and stuff goes,
Hmm.
and you know there's obviously no reason that anyone like should do anything except for just go and listen to this album for the rest of the year and not worry about that. Like maybe, you
Yeah.
know,
Don't
we'll
think about
yeah, we'll get the
it.
next one when we get the next one, and we'll be ready. We'll be like starving for it. But um as far as like shows and everything like that go, obviously uh getting the physical records has got to be just like an awesome thing, and you're ready to like get out there and put them on the table and have people be able to get them and stuff. Um, what all have you all lined up like for the summer and stuff that you can talk about, like where people will be able to catch y'all playing and stuff?
Yeah. We're pretty much only playing in Canada. Not pretty much.
Understandably.
Wait,
Yeah.
yeah. We were supposed to play ZBR Fest
Mm-hmm.
last weekend in Chicago, but yeah, the U.S. border has been very hostile
Mm-hmm.
with like all the trade war stuff happening. So we were hoping that we would tour down the West Coast, like through Washington and Oregon and California and maybe some more inland states over the summer, but we don't really see that happening. So we're going to be doing a tour in August through like Eastern Canada, in through like Toronto and like the surrounding like Southern Ontario area, and through Quebec and through New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. That'll be like in like late August. And prior to that, we're going to be playing in Calgary during Sled Island, which is like I think it's like June 18th to the 22nd. Um, and we're going to be playing a show on Vancouver Island, which is like a little a little ways away from Vancouver on the mainland. It's like a hour long ferry ride. We're going to be playing there July 5th, I believe, with oh shit, now I can't remember who's playing. But some good bands that I'm
Awesome.
excited with.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm sorry to put you on the spot like that.
No,
But
that's
yeah,
all good. I
uh,
should have been prepared for that.
people can find on your Instagram or whatever. Yeah.
Yes,
Um,
yeah.
awesome. Well, I wish that I was going to be able to catch y'all at some point. I totally understand everything that you were saying about the border and stuff. I was actually really, I was actually really nervous, like just for Dave to come and be at his own festival and get home
Yeah,
safely. So like I
yeah.
understand like a whole group of people that like more or less look like rockers, like
Yeah.
as well. Like come on, y'all are all
Yeah.
tattooed, you got the haircuts, or whatever. Um, but yeah, so I totally get it. But yeah, I have had a great time chatting with you. I'm sorry if I got on the, the existential, part there as far as like, writing songs and everything like that. But I think that
No,
is
that's
so
cool.
fun.
I don't get to talk about that often, so I appreciate getting to talk about it with you, Edie.
For
Thank
sure.
you.
Is there anything else that we should chat about before we take off, or?
Um, I don't know. What should we talk about? The Vancouver scene is really good, and I feel like people should check it out. Um, if people want to come up to Canada, it's definitely worth checking out. Let me stand on my soapbox for a moment.
Sure.
Okay, so a lot of the time I see bands, usually American bands, touring, and they'll do like a West Coast tour, and they will play, all the way up the coast. They'll play Seattle, and then they'll play in Boise, Idaho. And like, have you ever been to Boise?
Yeah, I actually I had like a really great show in Boise.
Fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
Damn it.
No, see, I know where you're going with this, and like I've done this twice. Like we played in Seattle and we did not go up to Vancouver. I've done this twice. But in my defense, like crossing the border like absolutely drives me mental. Like I am
Yeah,
such a
that's so
nervous
fair.
wreck, and like I feel like the border people, they see me and I'm prey to them. Like
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
they see me and they're like, something's wrong with that person. I'm gonna eat them alive. And like
Yeah.
I've been, into Toronto a couple times. It's awesome. I love it. I've always wanted to play up in Vancouver and stuff, but this is different for us, right? Because we're not from like California or whatever, right? So when I come all the way from Indiana and I'm playing in Seattle, like I'm on like day 14 or 15. So
Yeah, fair.
I've already been through like the ringer. So especially when I'm like booking and I'm like, I'm going to be like 2 weeks into this tour. Can I mentally can I handle that? And the answer
Honestly,
is no for me.
that's really responsible. I
Yeah.
never really thought about it that way.
But like if
But
you're from California, I totally know what you're saying. Like why
yeah,
don't you just make the 3 more hours? Because it would be awesome.
it would be awesome.
Yeah.
People in Vancouver would be so happy. Screamo is like really popping off here. There's there's a lot of pretty good Screamo bands in Vancouver right now, and like on Vancouver Island. And I've never really seen such a committed scene here ever. So it's like pretty exciting. And I highly recommend that people come up here and not go to Boise, because I fuck Boise.
Just never been there, just like, or have you been there?
I've been there, yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's
we did
right. You
a
can say
tour.
that with experience. Yeah.
Yeah. We did a tour there in 2018 down the West Coast, like when we were just starting out. And I mean, the people at the show that we played at, like they were all awesome and everything. But it just like the amount of like glares I got from just like random people on the street. Like we showed up at the venue in like downtown Boise, and we're just like outside of the venue having a cigarette with one of the local bands. And there's like these 2 guys in a pickup truck just driving around the block yelling faggot at us. And it was just like, what? And then like the touring band the local band, they were like, yeah, like that's Boise downtown Friday night for you. It was like, what?
Yeah. The worst thing that happened to me in Boise was when we were playing the show and I went up to the bartender with my drink ticket and I was like, can I have a Diet Coke? And she laughed at me. And I like gave her like a tip and everything. I was prepared to like give her a tip. I was like, being nice and she laughed at me and I was like, this is like put the $2 down. I was like, So that was the worst that happened to me, but
yeah,
I mean,
fuck Boise.
And that was my conversation with Victoria. Thank you so much, Victoria, for taking the time to chat with me. I had a really great time. I hope y'all had a great time listening wherever you are as well. Don't forget to go by the Middleman Records YouTube page, hit like and subscribe and all that, to stay tuned on updates. Until next time, take care and do good things.